Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Erik Soriano from Erik Soriano Studio. And for today's lesson, I want to talk about a different topic than what I've done in my previous videos. I want to talk about information architecture, or IA for short. This is a really important topic in the domain of user experience and interaction design. And it's normally done by UX designer or UX researcher, although I personally don't like to get caught up in titles. Um, this is what you use when you want to think about the navigation of a site. You want to understand the relationship between all the objects, including, the breadcrumbs, the title, the tables, the line items in the table, the filters, tabs, and all the different UI components that make up your interface and your experience for users. When you think about information architecture early on, you make sure that you have the right items in the right place to make it easy and intuitive for people to find the information they need to make decisions. And before we start that, I opened up this FigJam whiteboard to kind of just design as I talk about things. There's three main components that I personally like to look at when I'm creating an information architecture from either an existing product or a brand new product. And these three are the user, the content, and the context. And I'll explain each one a little bit more in detail, right? Of course, you can find a lot of this information online in multiple places, but they all normally describe these three main pillars of information architecture. So as I mentioned earlier, because we're talking about websites, applications, even video games, right? Any sort of interactive media that deals with a user, right? It starts with them, right? And then when you're talking about the user, you want to understand, obviously, who they are, what they're trying to do or solve. In other words, their problem or their need, their outcome. You want to understand how they currently trying to solve the problem or achieve the outcome. And the next big pillar is the content, right? So this is what although these three pillars are tightly connected, when we talk about content, you're talking about the what of a web page or of an interface, right? Like what will help user solve their problems. And we're talking about, this could be information, this could be inputs that are required by the user, this could be anything like that, any interaction from the system, between the system and the user. And this can be pages, this can be pop-ups, right? Like this can be tables, etc. You get the picture. This could be a photo gallery. Like, in other words, the what, right? So whereas the user answers the question of who, the content answers the question of what. And then we move on to context, right? Which it ties to what we discussed earlier as for the user, like how or where. I like to say where more specifically, because again, okay, the user is trying to, I don't know, if it's on a news website, they're trying to learn information about the breaking news, they're trying to stay on top of the weather, they're trying to understand, get information, right? The outcome is staying informed. Then the user, the content they're looking for. Now, where do you put the content, right? The context. And this is where we start talking about like single pages, parent-children pages. You can also say pop-ups, tables. It's going to be, again, it's gonna be an external link. You want to look into all those different elements, right? So let's review back to the beginning, right? So in order for you to create an interface, an experience, you need to know who is going to use it and what they're going to use it for. You need to know what is it that what type of content the system can offer them to help them solve the problem or achieve an outcome, and then where is that content going to be placed in the interface, right? So now that we have established these three main pillars, I like to think of the analogy of a house, and I might have written a book or an article about it before. I don't remember when, but I will make sure to add the link if I remember where I read about this. It was probably in one of my college lectures. So the next thing, the way I like to think about information architecture, I mean, it's in the word itself, right? Architecture. You want to know, if you think of a simple way to understand it is like a house, and if you think of a home, let's make this a little bigger. I really love this analogy, by the way. And whenever people approach me to explain what this is, I kind of give them like, a home, a typical a place, and what do you do in a home, right? You to live in, right? A home to live in, home to reside in. You can call it different things. That would be your equivalent of an application or a video game or some sort of interface. Inside a home, you will have rooms, and rooms have furniture, and furniture has functions. So you can kind of see the connection that I'm making here to a home. Let's say in a home of a website, we're gonna have a bedroom. And what do you do in a bedroom? You rest, you sleep, etc. Like, you have primary functions. Not saying you cannot do other things there, but you have a primary function for a room, just like in an application you would have a primary function for a page or a section of a page or a tab, etc. Let's look at another example. You have a bathroom or a restroom to clean yourself in, to get clean. You have a living room, right? So a living room is for to relax, to get entertained, and so on and so forth. And this is normally how I like to think about like I said, the architecture. Now that I understand again all these three, like who the user is, what the type content I need to have in order to help the user, and where am I going to put that content in the context, right? And now that we have this analogy for a house, you can get more granular and talk about a backyard. You can talk about a main bedroom, a children's bedroom. That's not really the concept here. If you want to look at an equivalent, you can think of an application. Let me just make another note here, like home. Let me just color code things. I like to color code things in Figma. If you think of an app, I'll just like the word. Let's just look at an app. You have a home page, right? What do you do in a home page? You get summary data. You look at a dashboard. In other words, like, you need to know what to work on, what to focus on at a time, right? To understand daily backlog, or quickly reach information. Now I'm gonna make this smaller a little bit, sorry about that. Now if you look at it again, an about page, right? Another example, like, what do you do with it? You learn about the team, you know who to contact, right? You know who can help you, etc. Again, I'll give you yet another example. Hopefully you guys are understanding this type of analogies in that I like to use. Another example you can have is so an art gallery, right? What do you do in an art gallery? Well, a photo gallery, actually, not an art gallery. A photo gallery to view photos, to get entertained, to enjoy visuals, right? To learn something, etc. To learn something, to download something, right? So you can kind of think about all the functions and how their functions are tied to the specific room or the page or the section, and all those sections together make up the interface or the app or the product. So this is like how I like to break down my information architecture when I'm working on something, right? I like to, again, once I have these questions answered, like questions to be answered, get answer. Once I have this answer by the stakeholder or the person I'm working with, it gives me an idea of how to proceed and which type of method to move forward with. In other words, you know, who I can talk to, what type of user research I can do, what the big problem can be and where the problem is located, and you know, what is the outcome that the user has that the problem is getting in the way of. Let's start making a, like, based on the rooms we created here or the functions. You can also think about this in a different way. Let me just get a little more visual. So as we talked about a house, right? So a house will have rooms or sections. Rooms will have furniture, right? Which is something I almost forgot to talk about. Rooms have furniture, and that furniture has a function. That's the, if you think of the furniture, you think about the UI components of a website. And then before we get to that, so you have functions, right, or actions. Like, what do you use the furniture for? Example, the bed help you sleep in, and the bed is located normally in a bedroom, right, which is in a room. The fridge, in order for you to store food and acquire food, you know, for cooking, you need to have a fridge and a stove, right? Where are those normally placed? In a room called the kitchen, right? So you can kind of make it a connection. The equivalent of this in a application or interface or UI, you can have pages or sections. Furniture can be the UI components, right? Buttons, tabs, tables, pop-ups, whatever. And then the function is like the actions that users can take with those components. In other words, if you think of a UI component like a button, right, what are the things that people can do with those? Well, they can click on them, they can see them, you know, they can hover on them. If it's a drop down, they can click, they can open the drop down, they can close the drop down, and so on and so forth, right? So you see the relationship I'm making here between functions, furniture, rooms, and their equivalent in the digital world or in the interface pages, which have UI components, and UI components have actions. And of course, all of these are to help solve problems, achieve outcomes, right? I really love to think about outcomes, outcome-driven design. Let's do another example here, another exercise more on the right. Now, if you start, now that we understand, you know, the relationship between places, content, context, let's look at an example, like an application like, I don't know, like a music application, right? Music application. I love music apps, and by the way, I've been working on one. I might give a little update on this channel for that. But on a music application, you normally have what? The home page or the home tab, depending on the size of where the device you're looking at it. You'll have a search page. You'll have a, you know, like a profile page or a settings page, and you have a music library, right? Like where all the songs get stored. Now, just like we talked about here, this would be the rooms, right? So I'm gonna make a little legend here, maybe in a different color. Let me see. So I'm just gonna double click here since I already have it. So we're gonna make the rooms a little different color, blue. The furniture is going to be green, and the function is going to be purple or light purple. Now we have our rooms, right? The pages, the sections of the app. And then let's think about what is it that people do on a homepage, like on a music application like Spotify or Amazon Music, right? So people can, you know, access music, right? You can access music. You can, actually, let me change the color because there's really bad contrast here. Let me do orange. You can access music. You can view music. You can play music, you can share music, right? Like you can find music, and again, this can, you can, when you're doing one of these, which will translate into a sitemap, you can even do again, put the furniture first, like the UI components, and then the functions, or you can do either like the functions first and the furniture. Like I was showing you in this order because this is how I make sense of information, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in that order when you're doing something like this information architecture visual. So let's say the furniture, you normally will have like square widgets, right? Like I'm not sure what those are called in the UI world, I apologize. You'll have headers or headings. You'll have clickable buttons, or just buttons. You'll have tabs, right? So like those are the type of furniture you're more likely to have on a homepage of an application. Let me use, maybe there's also like a search bar. There's also drop downs, like, and now that you see how I mapped here, like the place, the content, and the context, right? So like the user uses this page, this section is comprised of all these potential UI elements, and then they use those UI elements to accomplish all of these different functions, outcomes, tasks, right? That all happens in a traditional homepage of a music application. There's probably more that I'm not including here, but I just want to make it as simple as possible for you guys to understand and follow along as you work on your own information architecture. The same thing can be said for a search page or a profile page, music library, right? Like you can kind of think about how on a music library list, for timing purposes, I'm gonna skip to the last one. So in a music library, right, you'll normally have the list, like a list view widget. You probably have, again, action buttons. You'll have like filters. You'll have a search bar. You have images, like images. You have probably folders, right? Like those UI elements. And then some of the functions can be similar because, again, the homepage, if you think about it, homepage is supposed to be a summary of everything you have. Like you should be able to see it as a hub, right? You should be able to quickly access other pages from the homepage or the actual navigation. In a mobile device, normally this would be at the bottom. I would call that bottom navbar. And then in music library, again, you use all of these components to view music, to play music, to share music. How do you share music? You click on a share button. How do you access music? Again, you scroll up and down in the list view widget. How do you find music? You click on the search bar, start typing. You can also use filters to find music, right? You can also this is something that I guess we could also apply in the homepage. Like you can add music, you can hide music, you can I don't know, duplicate or like create playlists, right? You can customize playlists, and so on and so forth. But tying this back to the concepts that we covered earlier, right? You have a house, a home, you have rooms inside the home, you have furniture in the home, and those furnitures that are placed in the rooms are what going to help you achieve those functions in a user interface. And then all of these together kind of give you an idea of how the architecture how you can navigate it, how you can compose it, and this will help you see, like, how many clicks it takes a user, how many steps they have to take in order to accomplish outcomes. Like maybe you have two places that do the same thing. Maybe you have a lot of pages and with a lot of things that you don't need. Like this gives you a snapshot into how to approach the user experience from the navigational standpoint. And based on this, Not sure what this exercise is called officially step, but based on this, I would go and create a sitemap, right? So let's say if I determine for some reason that my music application only has, those I can merge the search and homepage together. You can do something like this, right? Like, and the sitemap is more like a simplified version of this. You don't really have to get this granular for a sitemap. It's more like which are the pages. Something else that I may cover in a different lesson or maybe just now is there's something called the 10 principles of information architecture or navigation that are industry standard, and basically saying, ranging from, like, don't assume that people are going to go through the homepage all the time or like the front door in house. Maybe some people will go in through the window or through the back door or from underground. I don't know, like I'm overthinking here, but the concept being like try to give people different ways to access the same information if that information is critical in their workflows and their experience, right? You also want to make sure that you use like short labels, things that are easy to spot. You want to use iconography with those labels that it's clear for people, agnostic of where they're from or culture, because you want to also create an interface that can be understood by people of different languages or different parts of the world. Last but not least, I like to, when I think of a navigation, when I'm already working on a sitemap, right? Like there's other exercise that I'm not gonna cover in this video, but you can do like a content audit or a content inventory, in which basically it's like a spreadsheet you create and you go through all the pages in your interface. You kind of look into it from this perspective I'm showing you here, and you say, okay, so I have, the About Us page has a page for about our team, about our history, about our services. Like those are sub pages of the About Us. You can kind of break it down really granular, line by line in the table, and you can see how many levels of depth your website goes. I personally like to work, I try not to have more than 5 or 6 levels of navigation, and by that I mean, let's say level A or 1. I like to level things like with letters. Level B or 2, level C or 3, and so on and so forth. Like a good user experience, in my experience as a designer, is to try to keep things more like, you don't want to have people click one place and it takes into another place and it takes into another place. Like you want to try to avoid that, but you also don't want to have everything at the same level, because not everything is equally important. And what I'm doing here, let me see, this is level F, right? So I think, in my opinion, most good interfaces have like, I'll go as deep as level D, I think. I mean, in some cases you need like you need a specific page to go to the next page, but when in the example I was giving you, right? So like if you're going to have an like About Us page, you can have, maybe your interface has like about our team, about the team. You have then another page, they click into another page about each person's page or profile page. So now you have 3 levels, right? And then maybe from there you can have, I don't know, like each person's photo gallery. So you can kind of see how you just made the user go 4 levels deep to be able to reach photos. Like the way I would approach it is, instead of going 4 levels deep, I would do let's say About Us page, try to have everything on the same page, like about the team, about the history of the people, and just have everything as sections in the same page instead of taking them to a different page. And then if I click into the profile, do like a pop-up, or just having a page for them, have a page for them so they can see their specific profile, and inside that profile I can have their photo galleries. So now you see how I cut 3 different pages. I have an About Us page, and I scroll down and I see, I don't know, my name Erik, right? And I click there and it takes me to my profile. But then that's only 2 clicks, 2 levels deep. Level A and level B, right? And you can also think about this as a house, like, or an elevator. Like, you shouldn't really have to go down a lot of levels or up a lot of levels to achieve something. It should be more like one or two or three, right? So, which is why it's so pivotal. And this is more at the sitemap level, which is why it's so important for you to take all of these steps early on and understand really like what you're working with, what it is, how people, how it currently is, and how you can innovate. Understanding what people do, these three main pillars: who the user is, the content, and context, will help. Answering those questions will help you understand how to set up the house and the rooms, and how to avoid having all these sub levels unnecessarily, right? Like, I've never seen an interface that goes like 6 for like a level F, like, just keeps going down, because it's like, okay, the user experience is probably really bad for that. There has to be a specific reason. Like, I try to keep it level B, C, or D if I really need to go for levels deep. Otherwise, I try to keep it like 3 levels deep. And that's been our overview for information architecture. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this kind of content, I'm pretty new in doing content creation on YouTube, so please bear with me. I will get a microphone and improve my quality. Check out my other videos so far. I have done some Figma tutorials for beginners. These type of videos are meant for people who are brand new to the world of design and UI and UX, and just all of this in general. Which is why I try to get really granular, really simplify the concepts for you guys to understand. And then, yeah, check out all my other videos. Please leave a like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy this content, and stay tuned for more. Goodbye.